Welcome back to the NSHSS Scholars Connect Podcast. I'm your host, Angelica Oliver, and I am so excited for today's episode. We're joined by someone who's truly extraordinary, Miss Kimberly Hackett, the 2025 Claes Nobel Educator of the Year. I'm so happy you're taking the time out of your day today to listen because Kimberly shares real, heartfelt advice for students navigating pressure and big dreams. We're talking about growth, grit, mindset, and what it really means to define success in a healthy, sustainable way. Let's jump in. Hello, listeners. We have a very special guest here today for the NSHSS Scholars Connect podcast. We have our 2025 Claes Nobel Educator of the Year, Miss Kimberly Hackett. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited for this conversation. So for people who may not know you, tell us a little bit about yourself and what does the Educator of the Year recognition mean to you, both professionally and personally?
My name's Kimberly Hackett. I've been teaching this is my 29th year. So I have a year to go until retirement if I choose to retire, but I'm kind of happy I get to that point where I can say I've hit 30 years. Well, to get to this recognition, I actually had to be an educator of distinction first before I could get to this level. And that's not something that I guess I can put in for myself. I actually had a student do it, and I knew nothing about it until I actually got it in the mail. The young lady that did it was one of my students. She never said a word until after it came. I've had students, oh my gosh, 29 years. I've had students who I have taught, that I've watched and I monitor, and I've seen them grow and go on, but I've never had a student actually take the time to actually sit down and fill that paperwork out and submit my name for it. So it just really kind of touched me a whole lot that she felt enough about me to put me in for something like this. I've had parents who write and tell me or either post some things on Facebook about how much they love me and their kids and stuff, but that's a parent. This was an actual student. And for her to do that, just really, I had to take a moment and step outside. Behind my little cabinet is a door going into my little miniature kitchen office area, and I had to step outside my classroom and go back there because I thought I was about to start bawling in my classroom, and I don't want my kids to sit and say, "What is going on with Miss Hackett? She's sitting over there crying." So it means a whole lot to me because then I did go on and apply, and then to win, 29 years and to get something like that is probably the biggest accomplishment for me personally. I'm a CTE teacher, so you don't get the students all the time like the other core teachers do, so I don't get that constant recognition because I have kids that come and go. I teach all grade levels, 9th through 12th grade. They don't have me all the time. It's just come and go. So to get this award, to me, it was just the best. It was probably the second best thing next to being nominated for Educator of Distinction by my student.
I love that. I'm so glad that you brought up our Educator of Distinction program because it's one of my highlights as well, because there's students who are recommending their educators. So I'm so glad that you brought that up and that you were able to be recognized for the work that you're doing. In your experience, you've had many years in education. What habits or mindsets make the biggest difference in students' long-term success, both in and out of the classroom?
Okay, so going into this is something that principals and things focus on nowadays that I'm just like, okay. And I truly believe it's something that needs to be done. Kids nowadays have to have a habit of having that growth mindset. They've got to have the belief and the ability that they can do certain things, have the intelligence and skills to grow and persist through difficult times, seek feedback, and recover from failure because they're not going to get it all the time. They've got to have some type of growth mindset, viewing a mistake that they made as, well, yeah, I made this mistake, but what can I learn from this mistake? How can I grow from this? How can I do better? So it's a lifelong learning process. And being able to also self-regulate themselves. We always talk about how COVID has affected some of these students and the impact that's long going. And I'm like, well, yeah, but this is still something that we need to work on because they've still got to learn how self-control and self-management. You got all those emotions and hormones and everything bubbling inside them. They've got to learn how to consistently self-manage themselves and self-control themselves, whether they're setting goals or maybe doing little simple tasks, learning how to manage their frustration and success. Because everything that they do, all their actions do matter. They've got to have some type of ownership of the things that they do, avoiding a blame only mindset. Well, had this not happened, you did this. No, no. Reflect on what worked and what didn't work. Being consistent all the time, showing up even if you don't have that motivation. Because as I tell some of my kids, sometimes there are days I don't want to get out of bed. I want to stay in bed. But I've got to motivate myself to get up and keep moving, developing those routines. They don't have normal routines of let's do some study time, let's do some sleeping, let's do some reading. I get some students who come in and they're in class maybe 5-10 minutes. The next thing I know, they're trying to go to sleep. Whoa, baby, what did you do last night? Let's set up some type of routine to where you're getting up and going going and do what you need to do. Let's get some sleep in. I also think that another thing that they need to do is be curious. What's wrong with asking questions? Some teachers are like, well, they keep asking me questions after questions. Okay, grow with that, run with that. That's how they learn. That's what kids nowadays need to have. What happens? Connecting something with their learning and understanding that, hey, this is how this works, or this is how that works. So that curiosity to me supports those kids who are innovative now, and then also not getting defensive if you do something and you get feedback from your teacher. Learn how to learn from that. Just learning how to grow when somebody tells you something and not taking it personal. I always like to tell to some of my kids, well, I don't like that teacher. I don't like this. I don't like that. Baby, there's a lot of people I don't like in this world either. But guess what? I got to learn how to get along with them, and I got to learn how to work with them. That's the way the world works. You're going to get out there, college, whoever, you're going to run into a teacher that you may think is being difficult, you may think is hard or mean to you. Well, let's look at it this way. Maybe they're hard and difficult because they see the potential in you, and you need to learn how to accept their feedback without being defensive and grow from it. Apply it, because they're there to help you. Things change all the time. Business world changes all the time. So you've got to learn how to prioritize and go with the flow, figure out what works best for you, but then also get the habit of getting in a daily routine, going to bed on time, studying, doing different things. I look at some students now who are AIG and that's all they know. But then when they get to college and they don't do what they think they should do, they're about to have a mental breakdown. One of my young ladies, that's strictly what she was. AIG all the way. Everything was bam, 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 bam. She just straight A's out the gate all the way. She got to NC State, had taken some college classes in school. So some of her classes, she had already gotten the credit for it. So by the time that she got into some of these classes, she got a B for the first time in her life, and she about had a mental breakdown. We had to talk to her and tell her, high school is one thing. We're trying to teach you how to survive, survive and learn. School is not just an obligation. It is a tool that's trying to teach you something. What did you learn? Let's go from there. And so she had to realize, okay, this was in school. These are the things I did. Now, what did I do in school that I'm not doing in college? Maybe there's something I need to pick up and do. Listening, learning how to listen. Another skill, soft skills, soft skills. Everybody's do, 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 do. Hey, talk to somebody. Put the phone down. Put the computer down. Sit and talk to somebody. Develop those soft skills, because that's another thing. Once they get out into the business world, or once they get out wherever they choose to go, you've got to be able to talk to people. You've got to be able to listen. You got to have some type of empathy. You got to learn how to collaborate, navigating conflict. Those are the things that they need to learn, those habits that they need to learn. What did I learn after you have succeeded at something or after you have failed at something? What did you learn? There's always something to learn, and then adjust and track your progress over time. There's nothing wrong with that. Once they get all that done and develop that, they'll be great.
Yeah, I think that's so important for students. One, I want to touch on a couple of things that you said. There's a lot of students who, they may not be learning those skills at home. So really seeking that opportunity to learn some of those skills, and they may not necessarily know. So there's a lot of things that are out there, resources for students to kind of learn those skills and better themselves, so that when they go out into the professional world, when they go out to college, they know those skills beyond just like the classroom. And the other piece that I want to touch on is that curiosity piece, and not being afraid to fail when you go out and try new things, because everything that you do is a risk. So if any students are listening that are wanting to take this risk but don't know how to, there's a lot of resources out there. Just go and try it. Have that curiosity, learn more about the world and about people. And a part of that is connecting with others, like you said. And then the other piece I want to touch on, which goes into my next question, is that growth mindset. So, you have a growth mindset versus fixed mindset. The growth mindset is the one that will get you farther. So how can students advocate for themselves academically while also remaining open to guidance and growth?
Stay open to guidance by learning to balance their confidence and their curiosity would be the first thing. Self-advocacy to me is not about arguing for what you want. It's more about clearly communicating their needs, asking informed questions, responding constructively to feedback. Again, going back to don't get defensive over that feedback. Respond to it constructively. Think about some I statements, I'm struggling, or I thought I understood, but being able to admit that we don't know everything. We really don't, make your statements appear like it's a learning opportunity. A lot of the kids nowadays are advocating after their grades are final. Don't do that. Don't accept that. Advocate before. There's something that you did and you know yourself personally, if you did good or not. Oh, I did great. Did you really? Let's look at this. Ask them what should they focus on improving upon next. Okay, so you finally do get that grade. What did I miss? What did I make a mistake on? I've got some kids who settle for, and I tell my kids when I give out certain tests or whatever, please don't settle for the lowest score. Try it again. Figure out what did I do wrong. I know growing up, I had one teacher, she used to give us our test back, before she put the grade on it with the answers that were wrong and saying, okay, now you figure out what you did wrong, which I thought that was a great thing. Okay, I don't know my score, but I see what I got wrong. And you're giving me an opportunity to go back over it and redo it to figure out where did I make the mistake. To me, that's the best thing that you can do for students nowadays, because I've had I do that now with my kids with their tests. Don't settle for the lowest score, baby. Do it again. Figure out what you did wrong. I've had parents who ask me, why do you do that? And I told them, I said, because they're not learning anything until they figure out what they did wrong. I can give them the answer, but they don't know how the answer came about. So why not let them figure it out? We are curious. Let us figure out what we did wrong, so if they can advocate more effectively when they don't tie that feedback to their self-worth, because if they see a grade on there and they're like, oh, I failed. No, don't put the grade. Let them look at it and figure out, what's going on, and realizing that advocacy is not just a one-time conversation. It is a lifetime conversation that you're always going to have to do. So if they can do that, they're good.
I love that, especially advocating for yourself before, and then also that you give them a chance to correct what they may have gotten wrong, and really giving them not only what's on paper, but the critical thinking skills that should come along with it. You also pointed out parents' involvement. I would like to touch on that a little bit more with my next question. So what are the common misunderstandings you see between the students and the parents when it comes to academic performance and then also future planning?
This is coming at a good time. My son has been home for the week from college, and I'm guilty of this too, and we all are. Parents and students' perspectives are totally different. It's misunderstandings between the both of us, because it comes from good intentions paired with different perspectives, in my opinion. I view academics through the lens of long-term security. Hey, you get this A, you get this, you get that, you're going to be set for life, yada, yada, yada. But the students are experiencing life day to day in a reality that they're seeing, whether it's they're stressed on something, they're trying to develop their identity, or they have social pressure going on. My perspective and their perspective don't line up, then we're going to have a lot of miscommunication between the students and the parents and what I expect from them academically. I can say in high school, straight A student, that's what he was. But you get to college, it's different. I'm not there anymore. I'm not seeing what's going on every day. I can't monitor what's going on every day. So parents do have to understand, because I know the capabilities of my child. I can see his schedule and what's going on, but I don't see the other things going on in the background. You know, whether that, well, they joined this club, or they have this type of meeting to go to, or maybe they're playing sports, or maybe they're into music. Once you start looking at all that, then they have practices and things that have to go on. So as parents, all we're saying is academics. Oh, you just need to study more. Oh, you just need to study more. Well, maybe they did study more, or maybe they got up that morning and when they go to take the test, they studied so much that when they looked at it, they blank out, which is common with some of the kids nowadays. I had one of mine tell me today, I went to go take the test. I studied for it. I was ready for it. But the minute the test landed in front of them, everything just went swoosh. All of it was gone. And they were just like, I didn't know what to do. I said, stop, take a breath, look at it, and just relax. It's okay. So I always encourage to keep that communication open. Find out. Don't just say, oh, well, how was your day? No, find something else. Yeah, how was your day? Or how was this class? Or did anything happen today? Is there anything, what's going on here? What's going on there? And then a lot of parents don't even ask them at all. I see you got this grade. Why did you get that grade? I didn't, I forgot or something. And then they want to jump on and start jumping on kids and stuff, or start fussing or taking stuff away. No, let's sit down and talk about it and find out, why did this happen? You want to transfer that responsibility from staying available as a support to a manager. I'm here to try to help you, or maybe show them how to do a daily planner or something. Hey, I see you're running and you're busy. And that's something I had to do with my son. I talked to him, and when he finally said, Mom, you don't know what my day looks like. And he sat me down and he went through his day, just one day. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, oh my God, you're doing this, and this? When do you study? And he's like, 1 a.m. 1 a.m. When are you sleeping? And even though he's in college, that's what a lot of these high school kids are doing too, because they're so distracted and doing other stuff, especially if they're into sports and other activities. You're running and they have all this stuff going on. And God knows, if some of them have jobs, when do they actually have time to be a kid? When do they actually have time to study and to learn? So I try to balance what I do when it comes to when I see what he's doing academically, and just still let him know you are still growing. Education does come first, and it's okay to say no sometimes. Get that balance on things. I try to make my support, what can I do to help you, is what I try to ask. I don't want to just jump in and jump all over about, I don't like this grade, I don't like that. What can I do as a background support to help you to achieve what it is that you want to do? So really, to me, is that miscommunication and parents not recognizing that what I grew up with when I was in school and what was expected academically is a 300 turnaround with what these kids are experiencing and dealing with nowadays. And being able to recognize that has really helped change my perspective of things and his perspective of things, that now I can find a common ground and we come together and try to talk about stuff.
Test anxiety one is already just a huge thing, but then when you compile all of the things that high school students and college students are doing outside of just testing and homework and going to class, it can pile up. So I really love that you pointed out that communication aspect, because I really love that you and your son sat down and he was able to explain to you all of the things that he was doing. And you were like, whoa, I didn't even know half of that was happening. And then piling that up with grades and having to perform well both in whatever organizations you're in and academically, that can add up for sure. So as the 2025 Claes Nobel Educator of the Year, it's really cool to see your parent perspective, but to go back as an educator, part of the Educator of the Year's role and why you received this reward is because you really inspired that excellence and that character in your students. So how can educators and then students who are listening, how do you intentionally nurture those achievements and integrity in your students?
I'm not one like every other teacher. For me, I try to stay consistent with my message throughout. To me, for just the teacher who may be starting out or something, you want to stay consistent, because whatever you do in one area, you need to do it in the other area. Don't flip flop, because the kids do talk. Have some type of structure through your language, through your consequences. Don't do one consequence for one person and not do a consequence through another, because that's how students recognize whether or not you're real. My principal would say that the students only care when they know that you care. So For me personally, being Educator of the Year, the one that nominated me, she never knew if I liked her or not. And I'll tell the kids when they come to class, the minute you walk through my door, you're my baby until you finish. So that means I love all my kids. And I tell them all, I love every single one of you. By the time you graduate high school, you'll know whether or not I like you. But right now, know that I love you. I am here and I expect certain things from you. Don't give me 50% of what you can do when I know you can do 100%. Every child can learn something. It's my job to figure out how do they learn? How am I going to reach this student and nurture them to get them to where I want them to be so that they have success in my class, so that they know that they can do the hard things, so that they know that they're doing things the right way. That's why with me, all my assignments, I tell them for all the tests, take them again, redo them, because I want you to learn. I believe that repetition builds memory, and if it requires you to do it again, because at some point, something I have said is going to stick with you to make you realize we did talk about that in class. And I had one student email me and say, I didn't like certain things that we did in class. But when she got to college, she's like, I'm glad you made us do that because I'm ahead of the other students. I want you to go on and do bigger and better things than me. So I'm going to push you. I'm going to stress and do certain things and say, no, you can do this better than what you gave me. Let's look at this and do this again. Or no, you don't need to rely upon AI or whatever. No, you have a brain. Use your brain. Sit down, write it out first. Just whatever pops in your mind, write it out. Then go back and look at it and work on it and say, oh, okay, let me clean this up. Let me clean that up. All kids will succeed. It's just a matter of when and how they're going to succeed. Success may not look like the child that's got straight A's. Success may be that child that went from that failing grade to a D. They still succeeded. They worked, and maybe it's just a little bit harder for them. So for me, nurturing that academic, that achievement and that integrity is making them own up to themselves and recognizing that I can do this.
I love that and I keep on saying that because you've just been dropping so many gems throughout this whole entire interview. But the role of an educator is really to set the students up for success after they leave high school. So the fact that your student came back and was like, I'm so glad that you took these extra steps to make sure that we're ready and that we're prepared for what's to come next is, I think, something that is really powerful, and I think everybody should. Whether you're a parent who has a high school or whether you're a student who, you're like, oh, why is this educator like really on me about doing this or that? It's really about success beyond high school. Like that's the whole entire point. So I think it's really a beautiful thing that you're taking those extra steps. So for the students or parents who are listening, what's one piece of advice that you have for them as an educator that has been an educator for a while? Like, what advice do you have for them?
Don't give up. School is hard, even now. There's a lot of distractions out there. Don't get distracted. Don't give up. Figure out what it is you want to do. College is not for everybody. I understand that. Community college. There's nothing wrong with community college. There are plenty of jobs out there that don't require a 4-year degree that you can actually make a very good living. For parents, please get involved with your children. Don't just send them to school and say, okay, my job's done. Your job is not done because you're sending them to us and we're dealing with them longer than you are in a week. I'm not your mom, even though I may treat you like it. Once you step out that door, I don't know what's going on in your household. Take the time to actually just sit and spend time with your child and talk to them, or have certain special dates or something. Go somewhere and go do something with your child. Stay involved. If they're in a band or if they play a sport or something. I can't tell you how many times some of these things that I go to and I'm sitting here saying this child is out here marching in this band and the parents aren't even here. Or this child is out here playing this sport. And I understand we all have to work. But find that one time to show up, not just senior night. Don't just show up on senior night. Show up on another night where they're totally unexpected, when they're not expecting it. It makes a big difference. So yeah, stay involved with your children. Try to find those different little things and don't just leave it up to them, especially once they get to their senior year. A lot of parents just say, okay, go and do what you need to do. No, they're still children. They're still trying to learn. Like right now, it's a rat race to come for scholarships and stuff. Kids are scrambling trying to get scholarships, and the parents are saying, well, why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? Well, my question is, have you sat down and helped them to find and do these different things? Kids are filling out FAFSA forms. They don't know this stuff. They have no clue. Well, the school will help you with that. The school only knows so much. Get involved as a parent and stay involved. Yeah, mine's in college. I'm still up his butt and staying involved on certain things. I try not to be so much, but I'm still, hey, how's this going? Or how's that going? Once I found out how busy his schedule was, what happened here, what happened there, 5-minute conversation. Okay, I learned a lot in that 5-minute conversation than I would if I saw him every day. As a student, my advice, never give up. There are days where, again, we get up, we don't want to go, but you got to go. you know, what it is, whether it's that one class where that teacher lets you sit and just maybe meditate for 5 minutes or just do something else to get your mind off of something. Find that one niche in that school that you can be you, because there's something there for everybody, whether they realize it or not, whether it's sports, whether it's going to be your academics, or even get involved in some clubs. Because again, that to me, that networking piece of getting involved, I try to tell some kids, because I'm a DECA and an FBLA advisor, and I try to tell them, just give me one conference. Let me take you away somewhere one time. I promise. Once you experience it, you'll want to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. When I went to some of the NSHSS events, meeting some of those kids who had never met each other before, and they found that connection about, oh, you're in this, I'm in this. And then they started talking and realizing that, oh, I have somebody that likes what I like, or I have somebody that does what I do. That makes a big difference, because once you meet somebody else, even though they may not even be in the same town or something, it makes a big difference. Now you have that connection, that networking. We're in a big world, but it's a small world. You don't realize the connections. You don't realize those little strings that are attached that you may find out. This person does this, and they find out that they know that person, that you may know that person. So I always stress any type of organization that gets students together from different areas and lets them meet and talk, it's a big deal. The last event I went to up there with Baltimore, that's where we were, Baltimore. I wasn't doing anything in particular. Had left out the hotel room with my mother. We went to go get breakfast, and there was these young ladies on the elevator with their mother. And I'm looking, I'm like, okay, they're too young to be in college. So I asked them, I said, hey, what are you here for? And she told me, and I was like, oh, I know that. And I didn't tell her who I was or what I was doing. I said, so how do you think about it? And they just went on to talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. And then, they went to breakfast. We went to breakfast. And then they saw me later, and they're like, wait a minute, who are you? And I told them. And they're like, so you knew what we were here for? Yeah, I did. I just wanted to hear your thoughts. And they were like, wow. And the mom was like, wow, you took the time. Yeah, I took the time to talk to you, and network. And they were just like, okay, even with kids that don't go to my school, if I see them, if there's anything I can do to help them with, or I start talking to them anytime I go places and see stuff, my first question is, so what are your plans after high school? And they're just looking at me like, what? What are your plans after high school? What are you involved in? What are you doing? So as students, be prepared for those questions, because you don't know who you're going to run into. As parents, be prepared to advocate and get out there and help your child. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know where they're going to meet somebody, and maybe things may develop from there.
It really takes a community. It takes educators. It takes parents. It takes the students themselves. It was such a pleasure having you at Scholars Day. So hearing that interaction in the elevator just warms my heart, because that's the main point of our events, to have students come together and connect with one another. And all of our programs, like our ambassador program, our collegiate council, all of those are designed to help students connect with one another. So I'm just such in awe of the approach that you have with education. So I'm so happy that our listeners are able to learn a little bit more about you and your educational style and some of our programs. So I just want to thank you for joining me today and giving us your insights. So thank you so much for coming on our podcast.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed this.
Such a great conversation. Kimberly reminds us all that education isn't just about grades. It's about helping you feel seen, supported, and confident in who you are becoming. For our scholars listening, trust that growth takes time and that your potential is not defined by a single moment. Thank you, Kimberly, for your dedication and insight, and for the example that you set as the 2025 Claes Nobel Educator of the Year. If you want to nominate someone for an Educator of Distinction recognition, or maybe you know someone who wants to apply for Educator of the Year, visit NSHSS.org or click on the link in the show notes. The application for the Educator of the Year closes March 18th. Be sure to subscribe, share this episode with someone who may need it, and keep standing out, keep stepping up, and keep taking action. Today's episode was brought to you by the National Society of High School Scholars. The intro and outro music was produced by NSHSS Student Ambassador Sage Leggett.